guys, so just a minute. Okay guys, so in this video we'll be learning about InetAddress class and its factory methods. Let's start with the presentation. So some of the classes in Java.NET packages are InetAddress, URL connection, URL class loader, socket, server socket, socket address, socket permission, datagram packet and datagram socket. Exceptions in Java.NET package includes socket exception, protocol exception, connect exception, unknown host exception. We'll be using unknown host exception in our program for most of the part. Let's talk about the INET address class. Now, what is an INET address class? An INET address class is basically the one which represents an IP address. The java.net.inet address class provides methods to get the IP of any host name. IP address is represented by 32-bit or 128-bit number. The 32-bit IP address is used for IP version 4, that is Internet Protocol version 4, which is basically the 32 bits are divided into 4 octets, each containing 8 bits. One example for an IPv4 address is 192.168.0.1. It is commonly written in dotted notation. For the 128-bit number, it is used for IPv6 address, that is Internet Protocol version 6 address. The 128 bits are typically divided into 8 groups of 4 hexadecimal digits, which are separated by colons. One of the example is you can see over here. So to summarize, an IP address is represented by either a 32-bit number in IPv4 or a 128-bit number in IPv6. Now, types of addresses. There are basically two types of addresses which we'll be seeing in our program. That is, first is unicast address and multicast address. Unicast address. Unicast address is a one-to-one communication method in which a packet is sent from a source device to a specific destination device. It means it means the packet is addressed to a unique destination IP address. For for example, when you send an email to a specific email address, it is a unicast communication. Multicast address, on the other side, is a one-to-many communication method in which a packet is sent from a source device to a group of destination device. Example, broadcasting a live video stream to multiple viewers over the internet using multicast address. Okay, now the INET address class is used to encapsulate both the numerical IP address and the domain name for that address. The INET address class has no visible constructors. Factory methods are called by class names and not by object names. Just to remember over here. Okay, now let's discuss about the factory methods. First one is get by address, where it takes the parameter as an array of type byte. Okay, this method takes an INET address instance from the raw byte representation of an IP address. It takes a byte array address as input, where each element of the array represents a byte of the IP address, returns an INET address object representing the IP address. The second one is again get by address, but over here it takes two parameters, that is the name of the host and again the same byte array byte array. So over here it will return an INET address object representing the IP address along with the associated host name. The next factory methods are get by name, which is it takes a host, it takes a string as a parameter, it takes string name as a parameter, it returns an INET address object representing the IP address associated with the host name. Get all by name representing it will return an array of INET address objects representing all the IP addresses associated with the host name. Next is static INET address get loopback address. Now, this one over here, you might be wondering what is the loopback address. So let's understand about it. What is a loopback address? A loopback address is a special IP address which is used to test network functionality on an individual device without involving any external network. Okay, it is typically represented by this IP address 127.0.0.1 for IP version 4 or :1 for IP version 6. The loopback address allows network programs running on a device to communicate with themselves by sending and receiving data within the device. Okay, so basically, loopback address is the one which is used to test network functionality on the individual device without involving any external network. It basically communicates with themselves by sending and receiving data within the device. I hope you are clear with the loopback address. So this it returns an INET address object representing the loopback address. Static INET address get localhost. This returns an object representing the IP address of the localhost. Normal methods. These will be the two normal methods for which we'll be writing the code, that is public string at hostname and public string at host address. I think the functionality is clear from the name itself. Now let's move on to the code. Okay. We'll first go to file, new project, yep, Java project. Next, let's make it as inet address and localhost and factory methods. Factory methods. Okay. Next, yes, finish. So now we have created a project. Let's go to source, right click on it, new, go to class. I'll begin using the name main. Public static void main, yes, I want it. Finish. And don't worry, guys, for this PPT, I'll be providing it in the description below. So just check it out. I've written everything in a very simple language for you to understand. So there will not be any problem for you. Okay. So now we'll be using INET address. So INET address class is available in java.net package INET address. Now exception, we will be using the unknown host exception, that is import java.net dot unknown host exception. Okay. Now public static void main string arguments. Let's write throws unknown host exception to deal with exceptions in a program. I was get the spelling right. Unknown host exceptions. Chalo. Let's start with the IP addresses. Let's make an object of the INET address class. INET address. Let's make it as IP1 is equal to INET address dot get by name. Let's say we want to get the INET address of Instagram. www.instagram.com. Sounds good. Okay. Now let's start with the factory methods. So system.out println. Let's just copy it so that I can copy paste over here. System.out.println. Number one, address of localhost. I want to print my IP address of the localhost. So what I'll be doing, since it is a factory method, I'll have to call it by the class name. So inet address dot get localhost. Sounds good. Right. Next, I can copy paste sorry over here. Second one, address of string host, which means I'll be providing a website name, and I want to get the address of it. Okay, let's see. Inet address dot get by name. So this one we are using the same method, the one which we have used over here in line number 10. And by name, let's make it as Google, www.google.com. Sounds fun, right? Okay. Now, the next method was, what were the next methods? Ah, get by name, get by address is remaining. Okay. Okay. So for that, we have to initialize an array first, which should be of data type byte. iPad address, let's make it as, okay. Let's put some random four values, 5, 10, 15, 20, for simplicity's sake. Now, system dot out dot println, number 3 is the host name for IP address, which is INET address dot get by address, iPad address. Okay. Now, again, there are two methods for iPad address. That was one, we have just given the byte. We have just passed the byte array. The second, we'll pass the string host name as well as the byte array. So for that, I will be using, mm, sorry, inet address. Let's make it as an object one is equal to inet address dot get all by name. Okay, let's I was doing this one now. Sorry, I was doing INN address get by address now. Okay, I'll do it in the next one. Don't worry. We'll be using the get all by name, which means get all by name was basically return me all the IP addresses for that particular website. Let's just write Google over here, www.google.com. Okay, now it will return me all the INET addresses of this uh, website. Okay, so INET address object one. Now, since we want to print all of these, we'll have to use a for each loop. So for INET, the data type first, for INET address variable in object one, system dot out dot println. This is the fourth one, na? Yeah. So fourth one, address of address of the URL, we can say address of the URL is variable. Okay. So I'll be getting two addresses, that is IPv4 address and IPv6 address. Okay. Okay. Now I'll do this get by address second function, which was this one. String host passing two parameters, a byte array and a host and a string. Okay. Now system dot out println inet address of host, inet address of host with IP address and IP name. Okay, which will be, what should I pass? Okay, huh? I'll have to use this inet address dot get by address. Let's make it as Facebook. This is the Facebook one. Dot facebook.com. We have passed the string host and we'll then use IP address. We'll pass the byte array. Okay. Okay. Next loopback address. system.out.println. Sorry, sixth one, loop. I said, I think I repeated the definition. I think I've said the definition of loopback address. It is basically used to test the functionalities. Let's just let me go over to the loopback address. See, the loopback address is a special IP address used to test network functionality on an individual device without involving any external network. Mostly, typically represented by these two addresses for IP version 4 and IP version 6 respectively. Okay, so loopback. What is the loopback address? The loopback address will be inet dot inet address dot get loop back address. Sounds good. Next. So I think we are done with six of them. I think the six factory methods only were mentioned in the PPT. Just let me check. Mm, get by address, both of these are done. Get by name, get all by name. I think that's done. Get loop back address, get localhost. Right. Okay. So each of them is done. Now let's write the code for some of the normal methods. So system.out.println. Seventh one. After the loopback address, host name. Host name we'll be able to call it. We'll be able to inet address. Inet address is not necessary, I guess. For normal methods, we'll be using the object that is ip1.get host name. Okay. Next, host name is done. Now host address. Let's call the method for finding the host address. That is again ip1.get host address. Okay. Next, one more I'll be writing the code for. That is if you want to find if it is a multicast address or not. We just discussed about unicast address and multicast address. Let's find out how to check if it is a multicast address or not. So system.out.println ninth multicast address or not. So I'll be writing IP1 dot is multicast address. Similarly, if I want to check if it is a unicast address, you could write control V IP1 dot is okay. I think there is no such method. Yeah, there is no such method. So we can just check for multicast address. Okay, sounds good. Just let me check if I'm getting an error or not. Throws unknown host exceptions. Guys, am I getting a wrong over here? Okay, okay, okay. Just a minute. Okay, oh, yeah, I think it should not be yes. Okay, yeah. So everything is done. Let's run it. First, Control S to save the file. Then right click, run as Java application. Now to check this out, to check the output, go to console, which is by pressing Alt plus Shift plus Q, then press C, and here the output has been displayed. The localhost address I'm getting string host name for IP address, the one which we have defined in the byte array. Address of the URL, this fourth one, this is get all by name method. So this one represents the IPv4 address, and this one represents the IPv6 address. INET address of host with IP address and IP name. This one was, I guess, the fifth one was uh, get by address only, I guess. Just a minute, let me check. Hmm. I'll have to close this one. Well, just see for yourself. It will be easy. Loopback address, host name. This was get host name, get local address. Is multicast address or not? The 7, 8, 9 were normal methods, not the factory methods. Rest from 1 to 6 were all factory methods. So I guess you understood the INET address and factory methods from this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, everyone.